I did not speak with Wilkins. Quinn and Meadows were both given
We're surely leading up to a major twist with the upcoming finale of the second season of Silo, and there's already a lot at stake here. While Juliette does manage to save Solo and bring the survivors of Silo 17 together and get inside the vault, she has no idea about what's been cooking in Silo 18. Now, there have been some major character developments in Silo 18, and one of the most significant among these is the character of Lukas Kyle. In fact, Lukas has stepped into something so major that he might be the person behind the major twist in the season's finale. He's managed to uncover something called the Safeguard that might have the lives of everyone in the silo at stake. Let's take a look at what the Safeguard could mean and how it could be important to the lives of the people in Silo 18. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Safeguard. Lukas Kyle's journey is something that has been one of the most important narratives in the series since the recent episodes gave us insight into Salvador Quinn's letter. The fact that Bernard was using him to decrypt the letter based on his problem-solving skills was changed when Kyle started taking the letter seriously and working on what was mentioned in it. This isn't the first time that something like that has happened, because we had been privy to the fact that even Meadows had a similar response to the letter. She had disappeared for about a week following whatever was mentioned in the letter. After her return, she left her post as the shadow to the IT head and was then reduced to a position of lesser knowledge as the judge. If that isn't enough to create an ominous tension between the events, the very first sentence of the letter makes it more ominous. The first line that states that, "If you've gotten this far, you already know the game is rigged." Lukas managed to follow everything that was indicated in the letter and connected all the dots to reach the place where it all came to a dark end, quite literally, as he reached the bottom of the silo. While going to the tunnel, he was stopped by a voice that spoke about the consequences of coming here and indicated who else had made it. Based on these details, it became clear that only a few people had made it through here, and for those who did, only the ones with the authority were allowed to be addressed, and that's why this voice did not address George Wilkins. Now, the last line from Salvador Quinn's letter mentioned something about the Safeguard, which the founders of the system of the silos created. It wasn't really clear what it was, but it only turned out to be a lot more serious when the voice at the tunnel gave an instruction associated with it to Lukas. According to the voice, this was an instruction given to all those with the clearance who had made it through the tunnel. The instruction stated that if this individual would reveal what they see behind the door at the tunnel to anyone else in the silo, then the Safeguard would be initiated. What could the Safeguard mean? Now, the voice also asks Lukas if he knows what the Safeguard is, to which Lukas responds with an affirmative. But the particular tone, even though it was an AI voice, felt like the voice was warning Lukas, which meant that the Safeguard must take serious action to be taken against the silo or the individual who's seeking the information. Graham Yost has been building up to this moment since it was somewhat referenced in episode 8, with Lukas starting to decrypt the letter. In an interview about the episode, Graham stated, "In 8, we get into that thing with Lukas tracking down the story of Salvador Quinn and heading towards something that then plays out in 9, and frankly, into 10. Finally, when the episode unveiled this detail, Graham Yost stated, Episode 9 ends with, 'Do you know what the Safeguard is, Mr. Kyle?' I do. Well, we don't know what it is, but we're going to get an idea in the next episode, and it's not good. It's not a good thing. It's a big, bad thing." Based on these statements, it's clear that we will understand the Safeguard properly in the final episode, which will come out this week. Also, it's not just another detail, but something that will be very, very bad. Now, we might have to indulge in every action involved with Salvador Quinn to understand better what the Safeguard could mean. The very first sentence, as we mentioned, clearly indicated that Quinn had complete mistrust of the people who had set up the silos because he believed that nothing could be done to change the present scenario in which they were put. The use of the words game and rigged indicated that there's some sort of system, and everyone in the silos are just subjects or players that the founders have set up. Let's take Bernard's character into consideration. He's someone who follows everything that the founders had set up quite religiously and makes sure the silo remains in the condition that it's supposed to remain in. While Bernard killed Meadows didn't react loudly to it because she somehow felt like the wiser one amongst them, and this was something she had expected anyway. So maybe she was aware of the larger things at play, and her death wouldn't make much of a difference to the fate of the silo anyway. Now, Salvador Quinn could have been someone similar to Bernard only, except for the fact that he was a lot more aware later on after having discovered the larger things at play inside the silo. How he states that the game is rigged shows that he was disgusted by the realization that the rules that had been laid out had been to keep the game going, and it was not particularly for the benefit of the people inside the silo. Now, Quinn might have kept what he saw in the tunnel a secret, but he did make some interesting changes to the order in the silo to prevent certain circumstances. He took away all the books and other items, labeling them as relics so people wouldn't keep them around. He also managed to remove any memory that people had associated with these things by mixing something with the water supply. Making these particular changes indicated that he was preventing something that had been a part of the game or something that was supposed to happen and could have helped the founders make a particular decision in the rigged game. According to Bernard, what Salvador did prevented the circumstances of the rebellion that had been happening at regular intervals. His change ensured that the rebellions could be stopped until the present scenario 140 years later. So does that mean preventing the rebellion also meant that the safeguard being triggered could be prevented? Or does it mean that it could save the lives of the people in the silo? Based on all these details, it feels as if the safeguard is a type of fail-safe maneuver that prevents the silo from becoming a threat. It's an extreme measure that could be taken if the people of the silo end up knowing too much about the silo, including information that should not be available to them. Now, there are various indications in all the books that the people of the silo are being kept in the dark about the natural flow of things inside the silo. It was designed to allow people to be exploited without people ever being aware of it. Once this information comes out and people become aware of it, it might threaten the very system that the founders established, and the safeguard prevents that from happening. While we don't know if Lucas is entirely aware of the safeguard, his nervous confession of his awareness to the AI voice indicates that he is very aware of the seriousness of the matter he is handling. Earlier, when Bernard mentions the silo where Juliette went, he states that this particular silo is dead, but that really doesn't affect that larger system of the 51 silos, so that might mean that these silos are also expendable. But we'll talk about this later, considering there might be something regarding Silo 17 that might have a clear indication about the fate of Silo 18. So far, we know that the safeguard is a mechanism that puts everyone's life inside the silo at stake. It's like those bombs that Amanda Waller had injected into all the members of the Suicide Squad before sending them into their respective high-stakes missions. What does this mean for Silo 18? Ever since the very first episode, there's been an interesting parallel between the events of Silo 17 and 18. We've had the chance to see what might be at stake in Silo 18 based on the condition of Solo's home. In fact, Juliette's fear only grew upon realizing the lives were at stake because Silo 17 had gone through something similar to her own home, and that's why she was desperate to get back home before a proper rebellion ended up taking place in her silo. We were treated with an interesting twist when we discovered that there were many more survivors than Solo here, and eventually the vault was opened up for Juliette as Solo let them in. Now, even though Kyle and Juliette didn't have a good time during their first chance to help each other, both of them are in a situation where they might be able to get a chance to help each other out again because they are privy to something that they really shouldn't have been able to be. While Kyle might be uncovering what's behind the door at the bottom of the silo, Juliette might discover something while being at Silo 17 that might be parallel to that somehow. The season will not end just like that, because we know that the last time, the season ended with a complete blast as we were opened up to a big secret and a major twist. We can expect the same here, as both the silos might be linked in more ways than one. There's a clear chance that the safeguard that was mentioned in Silo 18 had already been triggered in Silo 17, making it into the dead silo as it appears to be, and leading to the death of almost the entire population inside it. Now, a lot lies on Lucas's shoulders as he goes behind the doors and unravels a secret that has changed the fate of 3 people who had made it to the tunnel leading up to the door. Lucas became someone who was clearly of significant importance to the Founders because his problem-solving ability was something that led him to reach this point. Now it all depends on whether he will take Meadows' path and give up doing anything, or if he will take Salvador Quinn's path and do something major to get the silo out of the game and somehow manage to save the lives of the people inside the silo from being at stake. Even if he does manage to do that, we don't know what the Founders have planned, but we do know that Juliette might gain his trust. So with this season ending this week, we might be getting another major twist that the people behind the series will take almost another year to address. There's a chance that we might be getting to see that this tunnel, which has been indicated since the very first season, could be something that exposes everything at work behind the system of the silos. Maybe it's a means to find out something that only a few were supposed to know, as people from the silos in the system established by the Founders. Whatever it is, we can't wait to see how it changes Lukas Kyle forever. Marvelous verdict. To be honest, even the books don't indicate something major like this, though the Founders and their control over the silos have been indicated there. There's a lot of excitement surrounding the final episode, but I'm sure we're set up for a major ending that will mess us up as we wait for the next season to arrive on the platform. Will Juliette get back to her silo? Will Bernard find out about how the game is rigged? Will the rebellion take its due course inside Silo 18 now that even major characters like Sims and Billings are on their side? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.